The morning, he shoved clothes into a suitcase and walked past me without a word. My world cracked open. 22 years of marriage, plans, and the college nest egg we painstakingly built felt vaporized in an instant. I stood in my pajamas, stunned, while he moved like a stranger. It wasn't only his leaving. It was the blank calm in his face, the absolute certainty that he'd chosen someone else. But the part that scrambled me most came from the doorway. My 12-year-old daughter, calm as a teacher, said, "Mom, don't worry. I handled it." She calmly walked away. Before we continue, thank you for joining me in sharing stories about protecting our families. If you believe children deserve financial security, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more families who need to hear this. Now, let's see what Lily discovered. When I opened the bedroom door, David was mid-pack, a dress shirt half stuffed into a case as if the house might spontaneously combust. No apology, no stumbling excuses, only motion. "What are you doing?" I asked, voice oddly small. He didn't look up. He moved with a practiced finality. "I'm leaving, Laura. Today." His voice was flat, as if he were reading from a script he'd rehearsed. The words hit like a fist. 22 years of anniversaries, sick nights, mortgage payments, grocery lists, all of it reduced to a sentence and a zip. I lunged, grabbed his arm. He shrugged me off like I was a stranger. "Talk to me. Tell me why." He met my eyes then, and there was nothing there, no sorrow, no hesitation, only a petrified kind of resolve. "I need to breathe again," he said. "I'm done." He asked me to transfer his half of the savings to a personal account before he left. That was the first time the word bankruptcy, not of money, but of trust, moved from a whisper inside my skull to the center of the kitchen table. I ran to the laptop with bare feet and trembling fingers. Our checking account read $247.83. The savings, zero. Lily's college fund that I'd fed since she was born, the one that should have shown something like $75,000, showed nothing. I refreshed, clicked transaction history, called the bank. 3 days earlier, while I'd been at book club, David had moved everything. Not his half. Everything. He had access. The transfers were legitimate. At breakfast, Lily nodded to her cereal bowl, eyes serious. "Mom, what's wrong?" she asked, and for a second I nearly lied to protect her. "Dad's going on a trip," I said, and the lie tasted like metal. Then she asked, "Did he take our money?" And my throat closed. I couldn't answer. She looked at me, small and composed, then surprised me with her calm. "Don't worry," she said, voice level. "I handled it." Handled what? I thought. She's 12. She's supposed to be terrified, messy, acting like a child. Instead, she buckled her backpack and left for school, telling me we'd talk after. I was left in the echo of her footsteps and 1,000 questions I didn't yet have the language to ask. The house felt enormous and unfamiliar after he left. Coffee cups in the dishwasher, a half-empty shampoo bottle in the shower, a tie on the couch, small. Everyday monuments to a life that had been rearranged without my consent. I cried in pockets. On the couch when a commercial about family planning came on, folding his shirts in a futile attempt at control, catching my reflection in the window and seeing a stranger. Lily, on the other hand, moved through the days with the unnerving grace of someone who'd been practicing calm for years. She continued to appear every morning at 7:15. Backpack ready, lunch packed, a kiss on my cheek. "Have a good day, Mom," she said, the same way she'd said it when David still kissed my forehead goodnight. I tried to ask if she was okay. She looked at me with those dark, precise eyes that seemed older than her age. "I'm fine," she said. "Are you?" I wasn't fine. I was unraveling. But Lily's composure was a kind of armor, one that left me awestruck and unsettled. I called my sister Megan and let the words tumble out. He took everything. He left. Megan's voice was warm and practical. She told me to breathe, to lock accounts, to get legal advice. Upstairs, however, something clacked, a steady rhythm coming through the floorboards. like someone typing with intent. Megan heard it over the phone and asked, "What's that sound?" I shrugged it off as Lily on homework. That night, trying to summon a normal evening, I made grilled cheese and tomato soup, Lily's favorite, and brought it up to her room. She was at her desk with the laptop angled away. When she closed it, I saw only textbooks, notebooks, a tidy desk. "Need help?" I offered. "I'm good," she said without looking up. She took her food silently and set it on the nightstand. Even then, something felt arranged, deliberate. The laptop had the air of a workstation, not a child's toy. Over the next days, I flitted between small, practical errands and waves of shock. I called David's number and reached voicemail. I sat at the kitchen table and checked balances until my eyes blurred. Meanwhile, Lily's rhythm never faltered. She logged on at night and tapped the keyboard. The tapping kept going until long after the house fell still. On Friday evening, while putting away Lily's laundry, I noticed a printed page peeking from under a textbook on her desk. It was an email thread, my name and David's name, and a third, Rebecca Collins. My stomach dropped. I pulled the paper free and read, dates, meeting times, hotel reservations, a casual reference to handling Laura when it comes time. It was the kind of proof that made breath catch in your chest. Lily entered the doorway with an empty plate in her hand and an expression that was almost unsettlingly neutral. No flush of embarrassment, no panic. She sat and said simply, "Dad's not very good with passwords." "Where did this come from?" I asked. She told me. She sat down beside me and pulled out a spiral notebook from under her mattress. It was thick with handwriting, screenshots, lists. Everything a careful investigator might collect. "He doesn't clear his browser history," she said. "He reuses passwords. He leaves his second phone on the charger in his office." She showed me screenshots of texts, calendar entries, and copies of transfers. She had even printed what looked like forged loan documents. Accounts opened in Lily's name. Loans taken out with my employment details. She spoke like she was reading a report. I felt sick and proud at once. My child had been watching, cataloging, preparing. She had learned to find things I didn't know to look for, to read the patterns that adults hid in plain sight. When I asked how she learned, she shrugged. "YouTube and forums," she said. "People teach this stuff." It should have been a relief to have someone fighting with me, but the fight was not something I recognized. It belonged to a person who had had to grow up very quickly. Lily had turned into a small, exacting strategist. The notebook under her mattress was a map of a betrayal. "I wanted to be sure before I told you," she said. "I didn't want you to panic, and I wanted a plan." She closed the laptop and looked me in the eye. "I've got it handled, Mom." I didn't sleep well that night. I lay awake and listened for the clicking. Once again, steady, deliberate, the sound of metronome to a plan I barely understood. I thought of college applications and the future I'd imagined for Lily. I thought of how someone we'd loved could act like a thief in daylight. And I thought of the strange, fierce child who had become the architect of our revenge before I even knew we needed one. When David called 2 days later, his voice thin and panicked, he said his accounts were frozen and that someone was posting things about him. He sounded like a man crumbling. I held the phone and watched Lily at the kitchen table, typing like a conductor. She opened her screen and, without fanfare, told him facts he didn't want to hear. Transfers, forged loans, identity theft traced to his and Rebecca's plans. He stammered and begged. She listened. Then, in a voice as calm as she used to use, asking to extend her bedtime by 15 minutes, she said the thing that would wrench him. "You taught me to protect myself. I am. Actions have consequences." She handed me the phone. For the first time that week, I felt a strange combination of fury and relief. We were not helpless. Not anymore. And the person who'd saved us was 12 years old. After the call ended, the house felt like a place that had been cut in half. On one side was the stunned, exhausted woman who'd spent 22 years trying to keep a family afloat. On the other side was the small, precise architect of our unraveling, Lily, who moved through the kitchen with the casual efficiency of someone who already knew how to make things happen. "I'm going to stay off social media," I told her, uselessly trying to reclaim some adult control. "Don't post anything. Don't tell anyone." My voice trembled even as I said it. She didn't look up from her laptop. "I know." Her fingers paused for a second. "I don't need to post. I've already sent copies of the evidence to the right places." The words landed like stones in a pond. "What places?" I demanded, because I needed to hear the contours of her plan in plain language. She told me in a tone that made the procedures sound like grocery list items, calm, methodical, unnervingly practiced. Anonymous tips to Rebecca's firm. Copies of forged documents to the banks and the credit bureaus. A compiled packet sent to a state regulatory board. An email dropped into a journalist's inbox with a clear subject line and enclosed proofs. My throat closed. "You did all that?" "Yes." She folded her hands like a student presenting homework. "I documented everything first. Then I made sure there were records with institutions that would act. Banks, regulators, consumer protection agencies. I also flagged the fraudulent accounts to the credit bureaus so lenders would see the red flags." She did not say how she learned to format evidence, so it would be taken seriously. It didn't matter. The result was what mattered. Within hours, calls started to come. A bank froze one of David's credit lines. The firm where Rebecca worked placed her on administrative leave after an internal audit flagged suspicious transfers. An automated reply from one regulator suggested a formal complaint had been received and would be reviewed. The first small crack magnified into a spreading network of official response. David called again, less composed this time. He begged. He tried to charm. He tried to bargain. He called me names he thought would hurt. He called me pathetic. I listened and felt gratitude that he could no longer hide his behavior inside polite phrases. Everything he had done was visible now, one careful document at a time. "You can't do this," he said at one point, voice strained. "This is going to ruin me." He sounded both terrified and untroubled by the human cost. "You didn't think twice about ruining us," I said. "You chose someone else over your family." "And what are you going to do?" he demanded. "We're going to make sure we survive," I told him. "We're going to get legal advice. We're going to talk to the bank about recovering what we can, report the identity theft, and make sure you face the responsibility for this." Saying the words made me feel steadier. They were adult things, procedural things, and they pushed back against the vertigo. That night, after David hung up in a mix of pleading and bluster, Lily and I sat at the kitchen table with printed packets spread between us. She had color-coded folders, timelines, and lists of transactions. "I prepared these for you," she said. "If we need a lawyer, this will save time. If we speak to the bank, they'll ask questions you don't need to get stuck on. If we go to the police, I want them to understand the pattern." I wanted to protest that she was a child, that she should be at a friend's house or doing homework. Instead, I found myself following her lead, calling the bank's fraud department, leaving messages at the regulatory board, locating the consumer protection hotline, and triggering 3 separate ticket numbers. I read the polite, bureaucratic confirmations and felt small triumphs, boxes being checked, our case entering a system that might afford us some protection. Through the first week, the official responses were maddeningly procedural. Some departments said they couldn't share details. Some insisted we file formal affidavits. Some said only that a review would be initiated. But the banks and at least one credit bureau acted fast. Several accounts associated with the fraudulent activity were flagged, and alerts triggered on new attempts at credit in Lily's name. That measure, even if temporary, bought us breathing room. There were also human consequences I hadn't measured. Word travels. The whispering started at Mark's firm. The rumor mill, once activated, moved faster than any subpoena. At the grocery store checkout, I could feel eyes slide toward me and then away. In the library where I worked, a coworker's casual question about what had happened left me exposed. A colleague made a sympathetic noise and then steered the conversation away, as if proximity to scandal might stain her too. At home, Lily remained a study in controlled purpose. She attended school during the day. They'd asked her to keep things quiet there, and worked into the night, compiling resources for other families. She started writing a guide: signs of financial abuse, steps to report identity theft, contact lists for consumer protection. The document read like something a dedicated adult advocate would draft, and several local parents asked if she might speak at a PTA meeting. I tried not to let the pride in my chest turn into fear. There were moments when I watched her and felt the full weight of what had been taken from our childhoods. This was not the child I'd read bedtime stories to. Somewhere along the last months, she'd gained a clarity that resembled expertise. She could list the pieces of evidence that would sway a regulator. She knew how to anonymize communications and how to package facts so they could not be dismissed as gossip. She had learned, horrifyingly well, to weaponize documentation. "Do you regret anything?" I asked once in a whisper while we sat on the couch with emergency forms in our laps. "No," she said after a pause. "I regret the things that forced me to do it." Her voice was small but firm. "I regret that you and I didn't spot it sooner. I regret that he thought this was okay. But I don't regret protecting us." Protecting us. The phrase had a bittersweet ring. I wanted to tell her that justice didn't need to be monstrous to be effective, that sometimes the law and the right response were kinder than clandestine exposure. But I could not bring myself to criticize the only person who had done the thing I hadn't been strong enough to do, to act first. When Rebecca's name started appearing in terse news blurbs, fueled by the initial anonymous tip, the community reaction hardened into anger. The firm's clients demanded audits. A small group of victims reached out to a consumer advocate and started to assemble. I watched interviews on television of grown men and women who had been quietly ruined by small embezzlements and scams, and my chest tightened at the faces of people who had trusted a professional. It was sickening to realize Rebecca's alleged greed had preyed on elderly clients and vulnerable families. The media attention eventually found a thread back to our town. A reporter called the library asking for comment about the mysterious whistleblower who'd exposed the Sterling scheme. I deflected. I refused to be the story. Lily said we should keep our profiles low. She had used proxies and anonymous accounts to drop evidence into the right hands, and then calmly added, "If they connect the dots to us, I'll handle the public side." The way she used that word again, handled, made me both swell with gratitude and shrink with unease. One night, after a day of calls, one of the banks requested a formal affidavit about the identity theft. They needed a notary, a police report, and documentation proving that loans had been taken in Lily's name. We went to the police station the next morning and sat across from a weary officer who asked the same questions I'd already answered a dozen times. Dates, transaction amounts, who had access to the accounts. Lily spoke in calm, clear sentences and handed over a folder of evidence that included screenshots, printed emails, and a timeline. "That's unusually thorough for a minor," the officer said, barely hiding his professional surprise. "She is thorough," I said, because the truth was too complicated to rehearse into anything less than raw gratitude. She protected us. It felt, in those weeks, like we were learning to be a new kind of family. We moved through legal appointments and consumer bureau confirmations like people learning a language of survival. We laughed sometimes, small, brittle things that tasted like medicine, and we cried in the dark. Lily continued her nightly patrols at the laptop, and I tried to guard her childhood by insisting on dinner at the table and making her laugh at bad jokes. Sometimes she would humor me and roll her eyes at my attempts at normalcy. Sometimes she would come into my room at midnight and want to talk, not about tactics and evidence, but about a book she'd read in class or a math problem she couldn't solve. Those moments were sacred. The immediate damage control calmed into a brittle rhythm. Bank holds that prevented new loans, regulators opening preliminary inquiries, Rebecca put on leave and facing internal scrutiny. David's life grew smaller by the day. He called less and then not at all. Where he'd tried to bargain and charm, there was now a thin edge of panic and then silence. Sometimes the silence was louder than his pleas ever had been. And underneath it all, a new plan began to take shape. Not Lily's clandestine countermeasures, but something more lasting. She wanted to build resources, to teach others to recognize the red flags, to create a small network where families could get help without shame. If we can stop one more kid from having to fight like this, she said, it'll be worth it. The conviction in her voice was quiet but absolute. I listened and wondered what kind of childhood we'd sacrificed to give our daughter a forward path. I tried to remind myself that life is messy and that survival sometimes demands extraordinary responses. Lily had given us a chance, a hard, uncompromising one, to rebuild. The rest would be the work of lawyers, regulators, and time. But the immediate wound was stitched with evidence, and for the first time in days, I could imagine a future where college applications were not a cruel joke, but a real plan. Lily's first appointment with Dr. Reeves arrived faster than I expected. The morning sun was bright and unforgiving, the kind that made everything feel too real. I watched Lily walk into the office lobby with the calm of someone double her age. She sat, hands folded, waiting for her name to be called as if she were there for a school project presentation rather than trauma counseling. When the door closed behind her and I was left alone in the waiting room, my stomach churned. I didn't fear what Lily might say. She wasn't a liar. I feared what I'd hear about what all of this had done to her, what it had carved out of her childhood, how much of her innocence had been replaced with a need to defend us both. After 45 minutes, Dr. Reeves emerged wearing a professional but slightly shaken expression. She invited me into her office while Lily waited outside with a puzzle book from the front desk. Mrs. Patterson, she began gently, your daughter is remarkable. The pause she left hanging felt heavy. Too heavy. Remarkable in a concerning way. I asked. In a complex way, she said. Lily has an incredibly advanced ability to detach emotion from logic. She presents experiences objectively, like a trained analyst. Most children her age describe events through feeling. She describes them through evidence. I swallowed hard. She's been under pressure. Yes, but it's more than coping. She leaned forward. Lily has been strategizing her trauma. I didn't breathe for a moment. She told me everything, Dr. Reeves continued. The affair, the stolen funds, the identity theft, and what she did in response. She explained it all like a sequence of solvable problems. That's exactly what scares me, I whispered. Dr. Reeves smiled with a soft sadness. She's not broken, Mrs. Patterson. She's adaptive, exceptionally adaptive. When the session ended and we walked to the car, Lily buckled her seatbelt, looked straight ahead, and said, I didn't say anything wrong, right? You weren't there to pass a test, I told her. You were there to talk. I talked, she said simply. Now we can move on. Her composed certainty made me ache and admire her at the same time. Back home, she returned to her laptop immediately. This time, what she showed me wasn't another folder of evidence or another set of flagged accounts. No, she had pulled up a Word document titled, Digital Safety for Families, Warning Signs and Protection Strategies, by L. Patterson. My chest tightened. Is this another project for Dr. Reeves? I asked carefully. No, she said. It's for other kids and adults. A lot of people don't know how to spot fraud until it destroys them. It shouldn't be this hard. She clicked through sections written with chilling clarity. Recognizing behavioral red flags in a partner. How to spot unauthorized transactions. Understanding digital footprints. How identity thieves choose their victims. What to do within the first 48 hours of discovering fraud. Each section read like it was written by a professional consultant, not a middle schooler who still kept a stuffed elephant on her bed. I touched the screen carefully. Sweetheart, this is incredible. It's practical, she corrected me. If we'd had something like this sooner, we might have stopped Dad before he emptied everything. That sentence shattered something inside me. The idea that she believed this destruction was ours to prevent, not his to avoid committing. But Lily wasn't done. Mrs. Henderson at school said, I can present this to the PDA next month. She said a lot of parents don't understand digital theft at all. You're going to speak to adults? I asked slowly. Yes. Over video, so they won't know I'm 12. Her tone was casual, as if this were just another item on her planner. In the following weeks, Lily's life took on two parallel tracks. Track 1, the child. She still did her homework, made honor roll, laughed at a silly video about a dog eating spaghetti, helped me bake cookies, complained about gym class, hugged me whenever I looked tired. Track 2, the strategist. But she also built password protection worksheets, researched digital fraud cases, cross-referenced identity theft statistics, took calls from other kids who discovered their parents stealing from them. One evening, I passed her bedroom and paused. She was on a video call. Her voice was soft, steady, heartbreakingly gentle. It's not your fault, she told someone on the other end. Adults are supposed to protect you, not steal from you. But you're not alone. I can help you protect what's left. I felt tears sting my eyes. She wasn't just helping us. She was becoming a lighthouse for other children in storms they didn't cause. A few days later, Lily asked something new and deeply unsettling. Mom, she said while washing dishes beside me, do you think Dad regrets it? The plate almost slipped from my hands. It was the first time in weeks she'd said the word Dad with anything other than clinical detachment. I think, I said slowly, he regrets the consequences, but not the choices. She dried a cup with meticulous precision. That's what I thought, too. There was no anger in her voice, just a truth she'd already accepted. She hung the towel and walked away, but I stayed there, staring at the sink, letting that truth cut through me. Spring came. Warmth seeped into the walls of our apartment, the way hope seeps into a life after you stop expecting it. Lily's consulting continued. Her guidebook expanded. Her quiet strength grew into something powerful, something purposeful. And every morning, she walked to the bus stop like any other 8th grader. But I knew better now. Under the backpack and sneakers and hair clips was a girl forged by betrayal and tempered into brilliance. A child who had turned her own devastation into protection for others. We were different now, but we were still us. And that was enough. For a while, our lives settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal, or at least a version of normal rebuilt from the ashes. I worked my shifts at the Millburg Community Library. Lily attended school, maintained her straight A grades, and continued her consulting work under the mysterious online alias E. Patterson, Family Protection Specialist. But beneath that quiet routine, something big was brewing. Something neither of us knew was about to explode into national attention. It began one Thursday morning. I was shelving books in the children's section, the usual mix of sticky fingers and cheerful chaos, when my supervisor, Linda, rushed over looking pale. Laura, a reporter is here asking about your daughter. My heart dropped. What kind of reporter? She says she's from Channel 7 News. Something about the Sterling embezzlement case. Everything inside me froze. I walked to the front desk, my legs stiff, rehearsing innocent sentences in my head. The reporter, a woman in a pressed navy suit with a notepad and 2 curious eyes, stepped forward. Mrs. Patterson? Jennifer Walsh. Thank you for speaking with me. Her smile was polite but sharp. I can't discuss anything regarding that case, I said immediately, voice trembling more than I wanted. Jennifer flipped open her notepad. There's been speculation about an anonymous whistleblower, someone with intimate knowledge of both internal transfers and federal reporting protocols. The detail in the evidence packet was extraordinary. My palms grew damp. We believe, she continued, the whistleblower may be connected to Milberg, possibly even to your family. I kept my voice steady only through sheer force of will. I have no comment. Jennifer gave me a long look, the kind that says she already had her headline, then nodded. If the whistleblower ever wants to come forward, they're a hero in the eyes of many victims. We'd love to highlight their story. She left without asking another question. I drove home, shaking, so hard my hands barely stayed on the wheel. Lily was at the kitchen table doing homework, as calm as a summer lake. Her hair was pulled back. Her math worksheet lay untouched. She knew instantly that something had happened. There was a reporter at the library, I said, asking about the Sterling case, asking about the whistleblower. Lily didn't flinch, didn't blink. She calmly closed her textbook. They won't connect it to me. Lily. They can't, she said. I used 7 different proxy servers, 2 anonymous data drops, and cryptocurrency payments. Nobody can trace it. But what if? It's fine, she repeated. Actually, it's good. More attention means more victims will come forward. There it was again, that impossible mix of a child's certainty and an adult strategy. I wanted to scream, "You're 12." I wanted to wrap her in my arms and tell her to stop saving the world. Instead, I sank into the chair opposite her, hands still shaking. Did we do the right thing? Lily looked at me like she couldn't understand why I doubted it. We stopped criminals, she said simply. We protected people who didn't even know they were being hurt. She reached for my hand, and when her small fingers wrapped around mine, my breath caught. Sometimes she felt like my child. Sometimes she felt like the one holding me together. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Lily received an email from a company called Secure Family Technologies, a leading cybersecurity firm that specialized in digital safety systems used by schools, hospitals, and government agencies. I thought it was spam, but Lily opened it and read every line with unnerving calm. "Mom," she whispered, "they want to recruit me." I laughed, a nervous, incredulous sound. "You're barely 13. "They don't know that," she said. "All my work is under E. Patterson. Age neutral. Gender neutral." She handed me the screen. My breath evaporated. The offer included full sponsorship in their Young Innovators Fellowship, a college scholarship to any university she chose, annual stipend, a guaranteed job at $120,000 per year after graduation, mentorship by industry leaders, access to proprietary forensic software. "This is unbelievable," I whispered. "I know. Sweetheart, this could change your whole life." "I know." But then she closed the laptop gently. "I'm turning it down." I stared at her, stunned. "What? Why?" "Because they want ownership," she said simply. "They want me to build tools they can monetize. Security that only helps people who can afford premium subscriptions." She walked to the window, arms folded. "That's not what I want." "Then, what do you want?" I asked. Lily dug into her backpack and pulled out a crisp, professional business card. She placed it in my hand. E. Patterson. Family Financial Protection Consultant ***. Digital Safety Fraud Response Recovery Strategies. I blinked at it, stunned. "Where did you?" "I made it," she said. "I already have 6 regular clients." My jaw dropped open. 6. How are people finding you? I post anonymously on forums about family fraud. People contact me when they need help. "And how much do you charge?" She opened a spreadsheet. $75 an hour. I nearly fell out of my chair. "Lily, that's more than I make at the library." "I know," she said cheerfully. "I replaced almost half my college fund already." My heart twisted. Pride, fear, awe, sadness, all tangled together. "What exactly do you do for them?" I help kids and parents identify red flags. I teach them how to lock down accounts. I walk them through recovery steps. Last week, I helped a family in Ohio reclaim $30,000 stolen by their teenage son. My breath caught. Is this legal? Everything I do now is legal, she said proudly. I learned the rules. She pulled up another window. I'm also speaking at a cybersecurity conference next month. As yourself. She smirked. As Dr. E. Patterson. They think I'm in my 20s. I'll use voice modulation. It'll be fine. I leaned back, overwhelmed. Lily. She placed a hand on my arm. Mom, I'm not dangerous. I'm useful. It wasn't the reassurance she thought it was, but somehow it helped. That evening, after she'd gone to bed, I sat in the living room scrolling through news about the Sterling case, and I realized something terrifying. Dozens of commenters were referring to the anonymous whistleblower as a hero, a guardian, a symbol of courage, and none of them knew that hero was my daughter, not even David, especially not David. When I closed my laptop, the room felt quieter, but not heavy anymore. Something had shifted. We weren't victims anymore. We weren't running. We weren't hiding. We were rebuilding. And Lily, my brilliant, fierce, terrifyingly capable daughter, was leading the charge. Lily's consulting work expanded faster than I could emotionally keep up with. She never bragged, never flaunted anything. She simply worked. Every night, every morning before school, weekends, even on the bus ride, I'd glance over and see her reviewing evidence for clients, outlining recovery steps, or drafting emails that looked like they belonged to a seasoned financial investigator. Still, that spring came with a lightness we hadn't felt in months. I could breathe again. Our new apartment had sunlight, warmth, and space that finally felt like home. Work at the library steadied me. The constant panic about bills eased because Lily, impossibly, was covering gaps I didn't have the courage to admit out loud. For the first time since David left, the shadows began to lift. But whenever life begins to feel safe again, something always arrives to test it. This time, it came in the form of a voicemail. I found it after I got home from work, the blinking light on my phone pulsing like a heartbeat. I pressed play. Laura, it's me. David. I froze. His voice, weak, ragged, stripped of its old arrogance, echoed through the kitchen. I hadn't heard him in weeks. I need to talk to you. Please. I'm not doing well, and things have gotten bad. Really bad. I need help. The message ended abruptly, as if he'd run out of nerve. I stood there trembling, replaying the cracked desperation in his voice. I didn't want pity for him, but a piece of me, the piece that had loved him for 2 decades, couldn't help but ache. Lily walked in with her backpack slung over one shoulder and immediately noticed my expression. What happened? Your father called, I said softly. Lily didn't blink. What did he want? He sounded scared. She set her backpack down carefully. Her jaw tightened, but her voice stayed even. He's scared because the consequences finally reached him. Lily, he asked for help. She didn't speak for a long moment. When she finally did, her voice was calm and chillingly certain. He didn't ask us for help, Mom. He asked for a bailout. Sweetheart. No. If he wanted help from us, he shouldn't have stolen everything first. I opened my mouth, but there was no argument to offer. Not a single one. Over the next few days, more messages came, each worse than the last. Day 2. Laura, my accounts are frozen. I can't get a job. My car barely runs. Please call me back. Day 4. I'm sleeping in a motel. I can't keep this up. I'm sorry for everything. Please just talk to me. Day 6. Tell Lily I'm sorry. Tell her I never meant to hurt her. Please. Lily listened to none of them. She always left the room when I played one. Her only response every time was the same. He made his choices. But there was a shift happening inside her. I could feel it. Not guilt, but something close to recognition. A fracture in her unshakable certainty. I could tell because her late-night typing slowed. Her usually perfect routine faltered. She sat at dinner longer. She stared at her hands more. She even asked once, barely above a whisper, "Mom, do you think he really understands what he did?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but he might be starting to." Lily looked down at her plate. Understanding isn't the same as fixing. She went to her room and closed the door. Days passed, then a week. No new messages. Silence replaced desperation. Until one Tuesday afternoon. I was making dinner when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered and immediately felt my chest freeze. "Laura?" It was David's sister, Claire. Something in her voice broke me instantly. "Laura, it's David. He's in the hospital." My knees went weak. I gripped the counter to steady myself. "What happened?" "He collapsed in the parking lot at his job interview. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, stress-related cardiac symptoms. He's not good." I pressed a hand to my mouth. "Is he?" "He's asking for you." "And Lily?" Lily walked into the kitchen at that exact moment. She saw my face, put her backpack down and whispered, "Mom, what's wrong?" I handed her the phone. She listened, and for the first time since all this began, Lily's composure cracked. Not with fear, not with guilt, but with something much deeper. Conflict. Real, human, painful conflict. She hung up the phone and stared at the floor. "Mom," she whispered, "I didn't think he'd fall apart like this." I stepped closer. She didn't move. "I didn't think," her voice broke. "I didn't think he'd end up in a hospital bed." I reached for her shoulders, gently. "Sweetheart, none of this is your fault." She shook her head, tears building, but she wouldn't let them fall. "He was horrible. He was selfish. He stole everything. But I didn't want him to break." Her breath hitched. I wanted him to understand, not collapse. I wrapped my arms around her, and she let me, finally, blessedly let me, as she whispered again and again. "I didn't want this. I didn't want this." We stood there in the kitchen as the oven hummed behind us, and for the first time in months, Lily felt like a child again. Fragile, confused, hurting. When she finally lifted her head, her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "Mom, we have to go see him." I nodded, and with that single choice, everything we thought we understood about justice, consequences, and forgiveness began to shift. We drove to the hospital in silence, the kind of silence that isn't empty but completely full of fear, confusion, old wounds, and something neither of us wanted to name yet. Empathy. Not forgiveness. Not even sympathy. Just the uncomfortable awareness that someone who once meant everything to us was now lying somewhere fragile. Lily sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded too tightly in her lap. Every few minutes, she'd unclench them, then realize she was doing it and tighten them again. Her jaw stayed set, but her eyes darted between the window and the dashboard. When we stepped into the hospital hallway and Claire saw us, she broke into tears of relief. She hugged me tightly, then knelt in front of Lily. "He kept asking for you," she whispered. "Both of you." Lily swallowed hard. She didn't answer. Claire led us down the hall. The beeping of machines, the antiseptic smell, the heavy quiet, it all felt unreal. Then she stopped at a door. "He's awake, but he's weak. Prepare yourselves." Lily didn't flinch, but her breath hitched barely enough for me to notice. Inside the room, the man lying in the hospital bed barely resembled the husband who once carried our daughter on his shoulders through the 4th of July parade. He looked smaller somehow, sunken cheeks, unshaven face, for taped to his arm, hospital gown hanging loose around a body that had lost weight fast. When his eyes opened and saw us, something cracked across his expression. Disbelief, shame, hope, and pain all tangled together. "Laura," his voice was hoarse. Then he turned his head, slightly. "Lily, sweetheart." Lily froze in the doorway. For a moment she was 12 again. A girl trying to understand how the person who betrayed her could be the same one lying here now, broken. But then she straightened her shoulders, walked inside, and stood at the foot of the bed. She didn't move closer. She didn't smile. But she didn't leave either. David tried to push himself up, but winced in pain. "You came," he whispered. "Thank you." I stepped forward. Lily stayed still. "What happened?" I asked. David exhaled shakily. "I've been trying. Really trying. I applied for jobs. I've been living out of my car, eating once a day. I tried to fix things. But everywhere I go," he swallowed hard. "My record shows red flags. Fraud investigations. Identity theft alerts. I can't pass background checks. I can't open accounts. I can't rent a room." He looked at Lily, eyes glistening. "I know why it happened. And I know I deserve it. But I don't know how to climb out anymore." Lily's throat moved as she swallowed, her face unreadable. "You stole my college fund," she said softly. "You tried to take out a mortgage in my name. You left Mom with nothing. You left us." "I know," he whispered. "And there's not a day I don't replay it. I ruined everything out of selfishness and stupidity. I thought I was doing something smart, something that would make me more. But I only made myself less." His voice cracked at the last word. The room went quiet. A machine beeped slowly in the background. Lily looked at him for a long, long time. Finally, she asked the question I knew had been clawing at her for months. "Do you understand why what you did was wrong? Or do you just regret getting caught?" David closed his eyes as tears slid down his temples. At first, I only felt sorry for myself. I won't lie. But when everything fell apart, Rebecca leaving, the accounts freezing, losing my job, I kept thinking someone was out to ruin me. His tears kept coming. But then I had nothing left to distract me from the truth. And the truth is, I ruined myself long before anyone found out. I destroyed the people who loved me. I destroyed my family. And I deserve what happened. Lily's lips trembled. She wasn't ready for that. For accountability, real accountability, from a man who had only ever given excuses. She stepped closer to the bed. Just one step, but to me it felt like a mile. "You hurt us," she whispered. "I know," he said, voice breaking. "And if I could undo it, I would give you everything back 10 times over. I would do anything just to hear you laugh again." Lily wiped her cheek quickly, pretending it was an itch. "I didn't want you to collapse," she said in a small voice. "I wanted you to understand." "Lily," his voice cracked. "You have every right to hate me." At that, her composure finally faltered. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent, sudden, unstoppable. "I don't hate you," she cried. "I hate what you chose." The grief in his eyes softened into something like gratitude. "I'm sorry," he whispered again. "For every moment of your childhood I damaged. For every night you stayed up trying to fix the mess I made. For making you grow up too fast. I'm sorry for being the kind of man you had to protect yourself from." Lily covered her mouth as another sob escaped. I moved to her, but she shook her head. She wasn't falling apart. She was releasing. Then, in a moment I'll never forget, she stepped close enough to place her hand, small and trembling, on the side of his bed railing. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not a healing arc tied with a bow. Just humanity, the bare minimum of what he used to have and what she still had inside her. She whispered, "Get better. Not for us. For yourself." David nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I'll try," he said. "I promise." We left the hospital hours later, emotionally wrung out. Lily walked beside me quietly, her hand slipping into mine. Something she hadn't done in a very long time. When we sat in the car, she finally spoke. "Mom, I don't know how to feel." "You don't have to know," I said gently. "Feelings aren't clean. They don't line up in rows. They just show up." She looked out the window. "I want him to face consequences. I want justice. But I don't want him to disappear. You're allowed to want both." She nodded slowly, absorbing that. When we got home, she didn't go to her laptop. She didn't check her messages or open a new client folder. She just sat on the couch, curled up next to me with her head on my shoulder. And for the first time in months, she slept. The next several weeks were gentler than I expected. Not easier. Nothing about betrayal and repair is ever easy, but gentler. The sharp edges of everything began to soften just enough for us to breathe again. Lily checked on the hospital updates without asking too many questions. I checked on her without hovering. And David slowly stabilized. But healing is never a straight line. It comes in strange, uneven layers. One afternoon, Lily came home from school, unusually quiet. She dropped her backpack by the door, walked straight to the kitchen, and set her phone on the counter. "Mom," she said, "Dad texted me." I froze mid-dishwashing. "What did he say?" She unlocked the screen and slid it toward me. The message was short. "Thank you for coming. I'm trying. I hope someday you'll let me be in your life again. Dad." Lily stared the words like they were in another language. "I don't know what to do with this," she whispered. "I don't know how to keep him out, or let him in." "You don't have to decide today," I said softly. She nodded, pressing her lips together like she was keeping something from spilling over. Then she walked to her room and shut the door. I didn't follow her. Not because I didn't want to, but because I finally understood that Lily needed space just as much as she needed support. That night, though, something unexpected happened. She knocked on my door. "Can I sleep in here?" she asked, small and tentative. "Of course." She curled up beside me, quiet as a shadow, and whispered into the darkness. "Mom, what if helping so many people made me too cold? What if I don't know how to feel normal things anymore?" My heart cracked at the edges. "You felt something today," I said gently. "That's normal. That's human." She pressed her head into my shoulder. "I'm scared that feeling anything makes me weak." "No, sweetheart," I whispered, stroking her hair. "Feeling things is what makes you safe. Being numb is what hurts people, not emotions." She didn't reply, but she didn't need to. For the first time since everything began, she let herself cry without shame. I held her until she fell asleep. The next morning, Lily woke up early and walked into the kitchen with a quiet determination. "I want to take a break," she announced. "A break from what?" She took a breath. "From helping people. Not forever. Just a few days. I don't want to become the kind of person who hides in tasks when I don't know how to feel." Relief washed over me so powerfully I had to grip the counter. "I think that's an incredibly healthy idea," I said. Lily nodded. "I'll message my clients. They'll understand." She did. And for the rest of the week, she didn't open a single encrypted folder, didn't write a single report, didn't check a single financial fraud forum. She played chess online. She reorganized her bookshelf. She baked banana bread with too much chocolate. She even watched a Disney movie on her laptop, something she hadn't done since before David left. Kids her age aren't supposed to be vigilantes. They're supposed to be kids. Meanwhile, the outside world kept moving. The Sterling case hit national media. More victims came forward. Rebecca was arrested. Her mugshot spread across social media. A storm of public outrage followed, including dozens of people thanking the anonymous whistleblower for stopping the bleeding before more families were harmed. Lily watched the coverage with a strange expression. Not pride, not fear, but something thoughtful, something reflective. "Mom," she said one evening, "I didn't just expose them because of Dad. I exposed them because they were hurting people who didn't know how to protect themselves." "I know," I said gently. "You did the right thing." She nodded. "But the right thing can still be heavy." "Yes," I agreed. "Good choices can hurt too." She wrapped her arms around herself, absorbing that. 1 week after her break began, Claire called. David had been moved out of ICU. He had started therapy. He was attending financial counseling. He was applying for jobs through programs that didn't require traditional background checks. He wants to take accountability, Claire said. Really take it. That night, Lily sat at the kitchen table thinking. Not typing. Not strategizing. Thinking. Mom, she said finally, when Dad gets better, what happens to us? To me? You get to choose, I answered. Not me. Not him. You. She tapped her fingers on the table in a slow, steady rhythm that reminded me of her midnight typing sessions. Except this time the rhythm wasn't anxious. It was contemplative. I don't want to pretend nothing happened, she said. But I also don't want to pretend he's a monster. He was terrible, but he's still my dad. It's okay to hold both truths, I said softly. Is it? Yes. She leaned back in her chair and breathed out long and slow. Mom, I want to see him again. Not today. Not soon. But someday. That's your right, I said. And I'll support you. She nodded. Then, after a beat. But I won't ever let him hurt us again. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It wasn't vengeful. It was steady, mature, balanced. The voice of someone who had survived something awful and come out wiser, not hardened. That night, she opened her laptop again. Not to investigate, not to expose, not to dig through anyone's accounts. She opened a blank document and typed, how to recognize manipulation, how to ask for help, healing after family betrayal. She turned to me. Mom, this time I want to write something for healing. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Lily wasn't just recovering. She was evolving. Not into a weapon, not into a machine, but into a guide, someone who understood darkness deeply enough to lead others back into light. Lily's healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in small, steady pieces. A choice here, a new boundary there, moments where she let herself be a child again, followed by moments where her insight startled me with its clarity. The day she began writing that document about healing, something shifted in our home. The tension that had sat in the corners like dust began to lift. She wasn't hunched over her laptop in secrecy anymore. She worked in the open, asking me questions about emotions, forgiveness, and trust. Real, human questions, the kind she never allowed herself to explore when she was operating in survival mode. Mom, does healing mean letting people back in? No, I answered. It means letting yourself back in. She absorbed that quietly. The next week, she used her consulting email not to take clients, but to send out a message to the kids she had helped. I'm taking a short break to work on mental health tools. If you need me, I'll still respond, just slower. You're not alone. She didn't brag about it. She didn't even tell me until I found the draft open on her laptop. And for the first time since all this began, I realized Lily wasn't driven by fear anymore. She was driven by intention. She wanted to build a world where kids like her never had to become what she had become. A month after David's hospitalization, his sister called again. This time her voice was steadier. He's doing better, Claire said. Really better. Therapy has him facing things he avoided for years. He asked if Lily would want to talk. Just talk. When she's ready. I looked at my daughter, sitting on the couch reading a book, her legs tucked under her, a blanket draped around her shoulders. She looked younger than she had in months. I covered the phone and asked, Sweetheart, your aunt says your dad would like to talk to you. Only if you want to. She closed her book, thought for a moment, then asked one question. Is he doing the work? Yes, I said. It sounds like he is. Then maybe someday. Not now. I relayed her answer. Claire understood. Lily went back to her book, but her eyes weren't on the page. She was thinking, not calculating, not planning, just thinking. By early summer, our life looked startlingly ordinary. Lily started a small peer group online where kids supported each other through family-related financial trauma. She made sure it was monitored, safe, and educational. No investigations, no counterattacks, no exposing. Just kids learning how to protect themselves and talk about what happened. She called it the Lighthouse Project. When she showed me the name, I nearly cried. It's a place for people in the dark, she explained simply. If someone had made a lighthouse for us earlier, maybe things would have hurt less. She wasn't wrong. She also did something I didn't expect. She began volunteering at the library with me on weekends. She shelved books, helped kids find stories, recommended mystery novels to teens. Watching her kneel on the floor, helping a 5-year-old find a dinosaur book, made me feel something I hadn't in a long time. That I got my daughter back, not the exact same one, but a new version of her. One who carried both scars and strength with a grace that humbled me. Then, one evening in July, Lily approached me holding her phone. "Mom, I want to send Dad a message." My stomach fluttered. "What do you want to say?" She sat beside me on the couch and typed slowly, no rushing, no panic. "Hi, Dad. I hope you're doing better. I'm not ready to see you again, but I'm not angry right now. I'm working on healing, and I hope you are too. We can talk when we're both stronger. Lily." She hovered her thumb over the send button. "Do you want me to read it first?" I asked. She shook her head. "I already did." She pressed send. Just like that. No breakdown. No hesitation. Just courage. Not for him, for herself. She handed me the phone and leaned against my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "I know he might never become the dad I used to wish for, but I don't need him to be perfect. I just need him to be honest." "He's trying," I said softly, "and you're allowed to take as long as you need." She nodded. A few minutes later, the phone buzzed. "Thank you, Lily. I'm working every day to become someone worthy of being in your life again. There's no pressure. Take your time. I love you more than you know. Dad." Lily exhaled slowly. No tears. No pain. Just acceptance. She handed me the phone again and said, "He still has a long way to go. But so do I." And then she smiled, a small, fragile, hopeful smile. "We're both starting over." That night, I stood in her doorway while she slept, curled around her stuffed elephant, her expression peaceful for the first time in a year. I thought about everything she had done. The bravery, the darkness, the brilliance, the burden, and everything she was becoming. Not a vigilante, not a hacker, not a child forced to grow up too fast, but a young girl learning to build herself again, learning balance, learning boundaries, learning compassion without sacrificing safety. And I realized something profound. David's betrayal hadn't destroyed Lily. It had revealed her, revealed a mind sharper than steel, a heart braver than most adults, and a spirit resilient enough to turn pain into guidance, guidance into purpose, and purpose into hope. Our family didn't survive because justice was served. We survived because Lily learned when to fight and when to heal, and she was choosing healing now. One message at a time, one boundary at a time, one breath at a time. For the first time since David walked out with that suitcase, the future felt wide open. For both of us. If Lily's journey from betrayal to bravery moved you, hit that like button. It tells me you want more stories of justice, healing, and incredible resilience. What moment hit you the hardest? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. More unbelievable, true family stories are coming soon.